Okay, Charlie's going around. If anyone wants to, we're going to say Sintillim for Reb Shmuel right now. Anyone would like to say, he would be greatly appreciative. I'm sure of that. You don't want to say? Then that's okay. Okay, we're here for the Matzeva Stellen of the late Mr. Shmuel Rosenkrantz. And we know that there are a number of reasons why we put up a matzeva. One of the reasons is that a basic reason is that kohanim are not supposed to get within 4 feet of a kever so they don't become tameh. But one of the reasons is a matzeva means something which is erect, so people can go back and daven, and it's the person is not forgotten. But our Chazal, our rabbis tell us that by tzaddikim, that their words, the Torah which they said, that is their memory. They don't need a matzeva, and there were certain communities which they didn't put up matzevas. They said, what is a person in matzeva? And Mr. Rosenkrantz is very much like that, because I'm sure I can speak for myself, but everyone knows there's so many memories, so many of the speeches which he gave, the drushas, and that the stone, it's not important, because it's the memories we have of him. But nonetheless, he was a man which was makpid. He was very particular about the traditions, and the tradition is that we do put up a matzeva. So we are putting up the matzeva, and we're going to begin with the traditional psalms. I'm going to ask Rabbi Karnofsky, which is the rabbi at Elwood, which I merited to hear many drushas of Rabbi Gutnick through Mr. Rosenkrantz, and we're still missing it, especially Yizkor time. So we're going to begin on the front page, Kapitel Aleph, Psalm 1. Please everyone say together, or just listen.
אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים ובדרך חטאים לא עמד ובמושב ליצים לא ישב כי אם בשרס אדוני חפצי ובשרסי יגע יומם ולילה והיה כעת תסרה פלגי מים אשר פריו ייתן בעיתי ועליהו לא יבול וכל אשר יעשה יצליח לא כן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט וחטאים בדעת צדיקים כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים תאבד. The translation of Psalm 1, Ashrei Aish, happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like a shaft that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked do not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. The Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed.
Continue Psalm 15, Kapitel Tesvav. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai miyogar ba'alecha miishkoin b'har kodshecha hoylech tamim fo'el tzedek v'doiver emes bilvavoy lo'iragal al hashoynei lo'asol l'reu ra v'chevel l'nasal kroivoi nivze beinav nimas v'sirei Adonai yichabed Nishbal Orav lo yomer kasbo lo nasam benashach v'shoichad al nachi lo lokach v'yise'ela lo yilam lo yimoit lo yilam. Psalm 23. Chaf Gimel. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai roi lo yachzar binois dasher yarbit seini al memenucha yisira leini nafshi shoy v'yadchinu v'maglei tzedek l'man shemoi gam ki elech v'geit tamaves lo yiduda ki ata imadi shiv dachem mishanta v'himi nachamoni tarech l'fanen shulchan neged soyroi v'shanta v'shamim roi shi koisi revoyoi Ach toy v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayoi v'shavdi b'veis Adonai lo'oirech yamim. Continue on the second page. Kuf Chaf Aleph 121. Shir lamalois esa einai elahodim ayavei Ezri marino say Shemai moretz al yitain lamoid raglech al yonam shemrecha hinei lo yonam lo yishon shem Yisrael Adonai shemrecha Adonai tzilcha yadi v'nachad yoimam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yarech v'lo Adonai shmorcha mikoda Yishmor nafshach Adonai Yishmor says v'yachal mi'ata v'yad olam. Finally, Kapitel Kuf Lamed 130. Shir amalos b'mamakim krosich Adonai Adonai shimava koili tiana aznecha kashu bois koil tachanunai im avoy nois tishmor ya Adonai mi'amoid kim chaslich alamanti vodei ki visi Adonai kifsa nafshi v'livodei hechalti nafshi l'Adonai mishim la'boiker shemem la'boiker Yachal Yisrael al Adonai kim Adonai achas v'arbei umeftus v'hu yiftes Yisrael mikoil avinoisav. At this point, we're going to ask Fred. Fred's going to a close friend with Shmuel, followed by Carrie, and then Ron.
What is that?
It is my honor to be asked to say some words on this solemn occasion as we meet here to pay tribute to a very special person, my dearest friend, loving family man, and an outstanding communal personality, Shmuel Rosenkranz. As we witness the consecration of his tombstone, his passing is not only a big loss to his family, myself, but to the Jewish community at large. His loss is irreplaceable. Shmuel grew up at a time when Austria associated itself with the Nazi era, at a time when Jewish citizens living in Vienna experienced waves of anti-Semitism. They were persecuted physically and orally, seeing synagogues desecrated, Jewish shops and homes demolished, and a beastly attack in November 1938 with the infamous Kristallnacht, which Shmuel witnessed, an event that deeply embedded in his mind throughout his entire life. His parents, recognizing for Jews living in Austria had little future, began to search for safer and tolerant haven, and set sail to travel off to far Australia. There he met a girl by the name of Betty Alexander, establishing a lovely partnership which lasted 63 years. Together they embarked on a mission of establishing a young Jewish youth organization which became known as Habonim, and it is still there today. Shmuel was a devoted husband, loving father to Judith and Ron, a passionate father-in-law to Leon, adoring grandfather and great-grandfather, and caring for his brother and sister living in Israel. He made his living with his father in the clothing business, but he set his sights on involving himself with leadership roles, serving the needs of the Jewish community here in Australia. When he accomplished this mission, he targeted the leadership role as president of 12 Jewish organizations, which included the Victorian Board of Deputies, United Jewish Education Board, Jewish National Fund, State Zionist Council, Bialik College, and various others. His prime interest lay with the Holocaust Center, where he spoke to secondary schools and university students, ensuring that they all heard of the tragic events of the Holocaust, where 6 million of our people were brutally murdered by the Nazis. With his achievements in life, he received numerous awards, like the John Monash Award, the B'nai B'rith Menorah Award, and Cultural Affairs Award. And all these awards, he was an eloquent speaker, always in demand to speak at the various organizations. He was a master orator. Shmuel enjoyed a lifelong friendship. We laughed together and we cried together. Our bond was solid, strong, and a huge loss to all who knew him. With the consecration, may he now rest in peace, and we all will never forget him.
Most of my speech today is in the words of my Uncle Ron, or Noshi as he's known in the family. And what we wanted to share with you is a little something about Emil Rosenkranz. Yes, Emil. Most of you know my dad as Shmuel Rosenkranz, but I knew my dad just as Dad. Outside of his communal activities and inside our family, he was simply Emil, Dad, or later on in life he became Zeta too. Dad arrived in Australia in 1939 at the age of 17 with his parents Max and Golda and siblings Paul and Annie. I was not fortunate, however, to know my parental grandparents. My mother Betty also arrived in Australia, aged 17, with her parents Morris and Fager in 1939 who I was lucky enough to spend many years with and remember my nanny and papa very well. Mum also had two siblings, Fred, who passed away at the very young age of 38, and Ben, who is here with Auntie Betty today. Mum and Dad both embraced their grandchildren, Danny, Rachel and Terry, and Dad was lucky enough to have two great-grandchildren from Rachel and her husband Paul, Charlie and Jules, and participate in the marriage of Terry to Jonathan. Dad's favourite room in the house was always the kitchen. Whilst the rest of the family were in the lounge room watching TV after dinner, Dad would spread the Herald newspaper out on the kitchen table and read the day's news. Well, that was when he wasn't travelling interstate or in a meeting. I can still hear Mum calling out to Dad, "Emil, make us a cup of tea, darling." Dad would also make our lunches for school the next day. Cheese and tomato for my sister Judith and peanut butter and jam for me. But he always had an ulterior motive, preparing an extra sandwich as his midnight snack. Sometimes Dad would also be in charge of preparing the Shabbat meal, with his specialty of paprika chicken a regular on our dinner table. We all loved his paprika chicken, except sometimes he was a bit heavy-handed on the corn flour to thicken the gravy and it would end up looking like glue, to use my mother's words. But I always loved it, especially the gluey version. Dad would always get up bright and early on a Friday morning to head into Carlton and pick up freshly baked challah and bilkers. What a treat it was to have freshly baked bilkers with lashings of butter for breakfast every Friday morning. The kitchen was always Dad's favourite, the true heart of the home. When Dad wasn't attending to his communal responsibilities, he actually had a daytime job of making and selling ladies' dressing gowns. As kids on school holidays, I remember fondly my sister and I joining him on some of his selling trips, visiting Maya, Geelong and Ballarat regularly and sometimes Bendigo. The highlight for us though, however, was always lunch. Dad would take us to his favourite cafes where we always looked forward to our spaghetti with butter and parmesan cheese. I still remember the day that we were introduced to Ken Maya and he was sitting on the table next to Bobby and Laurie, who I was too scared to ask for their autographs. On occasion, Dad would take us to the football. I followed Fitzroy and Judy followed Collingwood. And when our teams played each other on Shabbat, we would take the tram to the Fitzroy football ground and Dad would walk the more than 5-kilometre journey from Northcote to join us. Then, following the game, would wait until it was dark so he could jump on the tram home. Dad also used to take us to Sunday school in the mornings, but he was almost always late in picking us up. Why? Because World Champion Wrestling was on the television, of course, especially when Mark Lewin was featured. A couple of times we were even allowed to miss Sunday school and head into the Channel 9 studios to watch the wrestling live, as my cousin David was able to get us tickets as the president of the Killer Kowalski fan club. One last thing you may not have known about my dad was that he was a communist. Well, at least according to ASIO that was the case, and they were monitoring his every movement. They also had a file on his mother Golda, which together had documented their plot to set up a communist organisation here in Australia. Its name? Habonim. Back then, the Australian government were paranoid about the refos and the commos, and as such, Dad was not allowed to become an Australian citizen. It was not until the 1960s, after being in the country for more than 20 years, when Dad called on his friend Arthur Caldwell, the then leader of the Australian Labor Party, who put the wheels in motion for Dad to finally become a citizen.
Okay, I'd just like to thank a few people that were part of my dad's life at Emmy Monash. First of all, I'd like to thank Dad's carers, Miller, Lena, Laura and Zena, who looked after Dad's daily needs both physically and emotionally. I would also like to thank a group of people who used to visit Dad on a regular basis. First of all, his good friend Margot Lustig, who used to visit him regularly on a Shabbat afternoon. Michael Cohen, who unfortunately is not well enough to be here today. Michael would spend time with Dad, I think on a Wednesday afternoon, discussing politics and other communal affairs. Together they would also organise discussion events at Emmy Monash. Then there was Helen and Bill Russick, who would visit Dad regularly just to have a schmooze with Dad. Karen Morrison would also spend time with Dad. Also Julia Bloom, for the work she did with Dad. And Rabbi Stern, who would involve Dad in shul services at Emmy Monash and would always show great respect to him. I would just like to finish off by paying tribute to my late sister Judith, or Juice as I used to call her, and her husband Leon. Judith was an amazing person who always had time and made time for my parents in their latter years. Both Judy and Leon made their lives as comfortable as possible. After Mum passed away, Judith became Dad's surrogate wife, secretary, administrator and confidant. She was a very special person. I miss my family. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you for coming. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, it's customary that we read